open right now. This drive that I always talk about with all this film footage that confirms my story. So, yeah, it's got a lot of stuff on it. But I found this test render of the TV show that I made. The first version of the TV show, this is something nobody's ever seen. It's the pre-Adult Swim version of the show. It was just a surreal travel television show. And we traveled to 36 different states to film this over, I don't know, 50 to 60,000 miles of travel. I don't remember the distance, but we went everywhere. And so it was supposed to be like a surreal travel show, like a Hunter Thompson based thing. So this was basically the opening of the first episode. It's a car driving, and it was the first thing that we filmed when we got out on the road and started making the show. And it was a semi that burst into flames, and it was just outside of Barstow. And so the show opened up with a narrative that said we were just outside of Barstow when the semi burst into flames. And then so the show featured all these crazy things that you would see when you were traveling, right? Everybody comes home with travel stories, and they always have some crazy thing that I saw. So the goal of the show was to go out and film all these crazy things that happen when you're just out traveling. This was real trippy. I don't have the soundtrack playing right now, but it's kind of echoey, and I'm ruminating about, why people should go out and go on adventures. And and this is the opening credits section. This shot was filmed all the way from San Francisco to LA. It's a time-lapse shot of the entire drive. This is a field of tanks outside this is Joshua Tree in California, and here's a field of tanks that we found. And so the story, the RV was the central character in the show, so there was a lot of artistic driving shots. And this is when I worked under the name Matthew Allen, because I thought my name was too crazy for it to be a part of a show. So you can see we spent just a lot of time setting up these shots and filming them and getting this opening of the show down. And so I had written all the music for the show as well. And so I was basically doing everything. I was filming, editing, narrating, did all the music. And this is our legal disclaimer. For the opening of the show, to tell people not to do what we're going to do. And so the pilot episode was pretty sweet. You can see the early incarnation of the Bigfoot suit that I wore when we were for the later television show. The Adult Swim pitch was Wayward Traveller 2. It was part 2 of this. And there's me dressed up like the Bigfoot. The Bigfoot was a central character in the Adult Swim version of this show. And so in the pilot episode, we went to Death Valley, which is right here. And we went to, I believe, the racetrack playa, which is where the sailing stones are. And I don't know if they're actually in this version or not, but there's the jets that fly over. So basically, we drove into here, and while we were filming this, our car broke down and we got stuck in the desert for 3 entire days, 35 miles in the middle. I mean, we cooked to death, and we ended up having to hitchhike out of the middle of the desert. And by the time we got out of the desert, our faces were burnt and blistered, and it was terrible. But yeah, we almost actually died after a couple of days after we made this. We almost cooked to death. And so the coolest part of this opening episode was that the point was we were going to go race a car around Death Valley. Just rock a car, just thrash it on some playa. And and so we basically got this car, and we drove way out in the middle of the desert. We found a big giant dried lake bed. And we took it out and we just raced it all over the desert and filmed it. I was on top of a mountain. We took turns driving the car. And And so the opening story here is that this is about the gangster cars that are in the middle of the desert. The story here is that there was two gangsters in the 1950s that got into an argument over a card game, and they chased each other out into the desert. And then, so if you look, these cars are entirely riddled with bullet holes. Now, this is not on the list of attractions to visit when you go to Death Valley, because it's off grid. And so, but the entire first episode of the show was basically about Death Valley. It was, I was really proud of it. That's Eric hanging out of the side of the car with the camera in his hand. This is me on top of him. This is Eric on a mountain with me racing the car across the desert. Yeah, it was cool. And this drive's filled with stuff like this. Here's my source files for my music video for a Grammy nominee. Over here are my source files for a few films. Here's my footage from Hinckley. 2 entire years worth of film compressed into these 15-minute shots that show the town, the demise of the town. Here's the trichloroethylene plume film from San Fernando Valley. Here's the film for the Asheville, North Carolina cause. Here's Joe Paganakis asking this guy different questions than what he edited himself asking him on television, so I caught him. Up here is the source files from my documentary Poison in the Grapes, and also Poison in the Grapes 2 is in here somewhere as well. The entire film. So here's most of Poison in the Grapes 2, which is also Death Water, and so these entire sets of shots right here encompass Death Water. And then up here I have here's the cause in Malibu, which, you know, the place is on fire right now, but this is Surfrider Beach, where the beach is closed 156 days out of the year because of fecal coliform bacteria. So that's one piece of film. And you know, I got travel footage, airplane rides. I mean, there's people out there that say that my story isn't true or I'm not who I say I am, but I mean, this drive is just jam-packed with all the film evidence. I mean, it's years and years and years. Here's the scenes from my music video that I'm making right now. This is a scene where the guy rips all his hair out in the sink. Yeah, there's plenty of evidence here if people try to tell you that I'm not who I say I am. Just remember that.